Hello everyone, welcome to the first day of the Battle of the Bookish Skills Training Camp. Woo, woo, it is Skills Training Camp time. I'm so excited. So if you don't know what the Skills Training Camp for Battle of the Bookish is, I'll leave the announcement for it down in the description and all the stuff involving Battle of the Bookish. I'm so excited. It is Easter, so happy Easter everyone. Hope everyone had a wonderful Easter. This vlog is basically going to go over the entire week of the Battle of the Bookish Skills Training Camp, which I'm super excited. I did just finish a book that was not on my TBR that is not going to count for anything because I got through half of it before starting the readathon. So I finished up White Rage. I started it yesterday and I finished it up this morning. And today, what I'm going to start with though is a book that also is for my Wheel of D20 reads. It's a very short read, like I can get it done within less than an hour. It is the fourth issue in the third volume of the Vox Machina Origins from Critical Role. It is for the prompt of returning the hat to Woody, which is to read an anticipated 5-star read. This for me, I know I'm gonna love it. I love everything to do with Critical Role and Vox Machina, and so this is gonna be, I think, a 5-star read. It's pretty easy to please me when it comes to the story. And then after that, I think I am going to start on something else. I don't know whether I want to start one of my N.K. Jemisin reads. I also don't know if I want to start like one of my books for the clubs I'm in, which one of them is Brandy's book club for her membership group. There is the next Octavia E. Butler read for this month. There is the Zora Neale Hurston read for this month. So like, I don't know which one I want to do. I feel like though I may start with Brandy's because I do have the audiobook from Libby and I want to get through that one pretty quick. So that might be what I do, is get through my comic of Vox Machina, finish up that vlog for the Wheel of D20, and then get started with Venco, which is by Sherry DeMaline, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce their name. I apologize. But all I know is that this has something to do with witches because it's a mashup, essentially a switch around of the word coven. And this one for the readathon is for the prompt of getting help from friends, which is to read a book with a large cast of characters. And I do believe this does involve a large cast of characters, like there's multiple perspectives and then also other people involved in this story as well. I do though need to, before I start anything, update some other readathon stuff because I'm also participating in Aurelium and also Realmathon this month. And I have yet to submit my last like 3 or 4 books that I've read this month for those. So I need to do that really quick before I get started. And I'm going to be leaving here probably in the next couple of hours to go to my parents. So I got to make sure that I get Robert up probably after I read quickly my comic, and then as I'm getting around, before I get started with my audiobook, get Robert up because he's taking a nap right now. So I'm going to get some stuff updated first, then transition to reading my first read for Battle of the Bookish, which is very exciting. I am leading the team of The Incredibles, which is super awesome. I'm very excited. So far, I have not seen anybody putting in points, but I know that because it's Easter, a lot of people are busy, so I probably will not see anything until later tonight if people are reading things, or at the very least tomorrow. So I'm excited though because my plan is to get as much as I can this week read, and we'll hopefully see the same results we did last time where everyone really liked the skills training camp and it gets people excited for the next round of Battle of the Bookish in June. So we are already coming close to that. We only have like a month and a half left almost of the time before the next big round, which is exciting. It's going to be all Pixar related, just like the skills training camp is. So it's going to be really, really fun. I'm super excited, but I'm going to get out of here real quick and get my stuff done, and I'll update you guys as I go. Okay, book 1 of the skills training camp is done. So I have finally gotten myself back in the reading game. I'm excited. I'm so happy. So I did complete the 3rd issue of the Vox Machina Origins. I thought I was up to issue 4 and I was wrong, but no matter what, this still would count because all of these comics are going to be like anticipated 5 stars because it's, like I said earlier, Critical Role, it's Vox Machina. They can do no wrong in my eyes when it comes to the creation of their expansive content, because this is all, the entire series is like dedicated to everything before what we saw with the Vox Machina campaign that was being live streamed on Twitch back starting in about 2015, I think. I think they just celebrated 8 or 9 years, 2014, 2015 timeframe. But yeah, so this was for the prompt of A Return a Hat to Woody, which was an anticipated 5-star read. This nabbed me 110 points, and I was the first person on my team to get points, which I'm very happy about. So the next one I'm going to be reading, like I said, is going to be starting Venco, which I'm going to start listening to the audiobook. I did have the library copy, but it was on a 7-day loan only, and I had already had to basically like check it back in and then check it back out. So I just figured I'll just stick with the audiobook, which for Realmathon actually would be great because one of the prompts for Realmathon that like lowers the points for another team is to read an audiobook. So that just means I can use this book to decrease somebody's magic, some team's magic. So good on that. So Venco is also Brandy's book club pick for the month of April. So this will give me the ability to get through this one. We're going to start that and we'll speak once I've got some progress made with that. So hopefully I like this one. I have heard kind of hit or miss feelings on Venco, so I hope that the witchiness is there for me, because the last time I tried to read a book that was considered witchy, it fell very, very flat for me. And so I'm hoping that this one brings me back up. So. Hey guys, so it is currently 8:38 on Wednesday, and it's been a couple days since I've updated you just because I haven't really had the time or really the energy to fully sit down and talk with you, but a few things have happened. So in terms of reading, I've been so far on my reading game. It's been really good. Yesterday I read the entirety of Mules and Men by Zora Neale Hurston. I listened to the audiobook mostly while keeping track in the physical book, but what I found was that the audiobook that I had through my library was very different than the physical book that I borrowed was. Like, there were entire sections of the story that were not involved in the audiobook at all, so it was really strange. But this was one of my prompts for Battle of the Bookish. It was the Zora Neale Hurston book for the month of April, which is part of a read-along I'm doing with my friends Bree from Bree Cherie Reads and Brandy from Books with Brandy Shanae. They are hosting where, since about February, they've been reading one book of Zora Neale Hurston's every month, and like I said, this month was Mules and Men. Now for this one, in terms of what my thoughts were, I liked it. I feel like that it was really interesting because I thought it was just really cool to see the story of Zora going back home to like her hometown, her home turf, and basically learning about a bunch of folk tales from her community. A lot of really cool ones, a lot of which are very, you know, religious based and like very much the folk tales that like I remember kind of hearing about growing up, where it was like, oh, how did this thing come about? Like, how did this thing, you know, turn into this? Or how did this person create this kind of thing within nature or something like that. Like, that was kind of the idea of the folk tales, and it was really cool because the way that the audiobook sounded was so entertaining. It was so lively with the voices that were brought up in the dialogue of the story. Like, it just really felt like it came to life, and it was really fun. I just wish that the experience of reading it was a little bit better because, like I said, the audiobook was so different from the physical book that I just lost like a huge chunk, I think, of the entire experience of reading this. So it's more so the fact that like I just didn't get what I fully wanted, I think, out of this kind of a book. But overall, it was really cool and I really enjoyed it. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. For Battle of the Bookish, this counted for the prompt of keep your eyes open, which was to have a book with a face or eyes on the cover. And as you can see, this has a lot of different side profiles of faces and stuff. Before that though, I did complete the entirety of Venco, which is Brandy's book club pick for her membership book club. This was absolutely amazing. From like beginning to end, this was really, really fun. I really liked this a lot more than I thought I was going to. I was really concerned at first going into this that it was not going to be super entertaining, but it actually was really cool. It's all about this girl who is, well, she's a woman, she's a fully grown woman named Lucky, and she basically finds this silver spoon that is tied to this coven that then comes and finds her, and she finds out that she's part of a larger coven that they are trying to essentially bring power back to. It's basically said that during like the Salem witch trials, there was this whole thing where this coven had basically placed these spoons around, saying that, you know, the witches are going to be lost, the power is going to be lost, but then eventually there's going to be 7 witches who are going to bring that power back. And in it we have a trans main character, which is really cool, and you kind of learn a little bit about how their coming out had gone, which is a little traumatizing, so I'm going to place a bit of a warning for transphobia, I believe. It was just really, really interesting to read the perspective of somebody who was a trans woman, and still, because I think a lot of people in the witchy communities tend to feel that men cannot do any kind of witchcraft, which is complete nonsense. There are male witches, and that is a thing. There are also two-spirited or trans witches, and just because you are one or the other does not mean that you can't have magical abilities, you can't practice. Like, it's actually wonderful to have different types of witches in the community, because of the fact that it brings different voices to the table. It brings different energies to the table, because if somebody, for instance, is a trans person, they have a little bit more of a balance in terms of masculine and feminine, or they have, you know, because of the fact that they started off as one and transitioned to another, so they have that, you know, flexibility of having both of those energies. They understand how having both of those energies is, whereas for somebody like me, as a cis person, I only really know about having more feminine energies because I am a very feminine individual. So they are very much a part of the community that I welcome with open arms, because I think that they have so much to offer in terms of their own experiences that they can bring into their practices, and I can learn from them. You know, if I, you know, chose to follow a certain trans or non-binary witch, which I don't know very many personally or through TikTok or anything, but more than likely I will find some in the near future. So I am totally up for learning from them, because I think that especially in Native cultures and also maybe more Latinx cultures where there is being, you know, brujeria, that would be really interesting to learn more about, and how those practices are as somebody that is a non-binary, two-spirited, or trans individual. So really, really fascinating. Absolutely really like this. I will say it wasn't necessarily super action-packed. Like, there really wasn't a ton of action. It was more so like somebody basically beating a clock, like, or basically keeping something from happening. There was like a little bit of action toward the end, but it wasn't nearly as like suspenseful or intense as I thought it was going to end up being. So I would have appreciated if it was a little bit more like that, but it also wasn't necessarily a story that needed that. So I kind of just was like, it wasn't perfect, but it was really entertaining, and I would love to read it again in the future, and I would love to read more of Sherry Demoline's work, because apparently they are the ones that wrote The Marrow Thieves, which I have heard amazing things about. So I would like to be able to read The Marrow Thieves at some point, but I also gave Venco a 4 to 5 stars. This one for the Battle of the Bookish was for the Get Hints from Friends prompt, which was to read a book with a large cast of characters, because there are a large cast. I mean, the coven itself is 7 people, and then there also is the character of Stella, who is Lucky's grandmother, that we really learn a lot about. There is another perspective from a witch hunter that is in the story, and you learn a lot about the lore in terms of them. So there's a very large cast of characters within this, and definitely is one I would recommend, especially as a 2023 release. This was released in February January of 2023. Definitely, I think, worth checking out, especially if you're interested in witchcraft and you're not looking for something super intense in terms of, you know, trauma or disaster or anything like that. This is a little bit more of a lighthearted read as opposed to something extremely dark and gritty, which I think a lot of times these kinds of books can tend to be. But what I'm working on right now is my next book, which is a book that I'm reading for Battle of the Bookish, but it's also for Aurelium, and it is actually one of my Self-Destruct books for my Self-Destruct TBR, and that is Crave by Tracy Wolff. Now, I have heard a lot of people say that based on the cover, it looks like it's going to be something like Twilight. I don't know whether or not to say that's the case, because I never read Twilight. I barely remember the movies. I don't care to go back and read the books or watch the movies again because I hate the movies. I think that they are just so over the top and dumb. To me personally, I know that that is a huge thing, a slander when it comes to like the booktube community for a lot of people, but I have no interest in the Twilight series. Now, the only reason I wanted to read this series is because I heard a lot of people say that even though it looks like it should be a lot like Twilight, it's a lot better and it's not as destructive as Stephenie Meyer's writing is. So all I really know, because I'm only just really in the 3rd chapter of this right now, is that it follows a young woman who is freshly 17 years old. Her parents were both killed in some kind of an accident, and she is basically whisked away to where her uncle lives in the middle of Alaska. Nobody knows really where he lives, but she knows that he's the headmaster of an academy. And this academy is very gothic in feel. It feels very much like a vampire castle, and I'm more than willing to bet that that is the case, because I feel like with the blood here and the fact that it's Crave, I have a feeling there's some kinds of vampires here. So basically, what we just witnessed though is the main character, whose name is Grace. And the only reason I can remember that is because I have a friend that's named Grace that I just saw yesterday. So Grace is essentially, she just met one of the characters who I believe either could be our main love interest or could be a sworn enemy of sorts. But this is like tall, dark, mysterious, sexy, very, you know, tropey kind of guy. And I'm willing to bet that he's some kind of a vampire. And he, from the get-go, is like, you need to leave here, and if you don't go willingly, we're gonna force you out, kind of thing. So she's obviously like caught off guard by that, and so she has no idea really what to expect from this point. But she's hoping maybe she can kind of get a new start after her parents' death. So don't really know much else about this. It's not that bad so far. I feel like this guy that she met is definitely going to be our love interest. Like, he's got that vibe to me. Whether or not she's going to be turned into a vampire, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I have heard though from a lot of people that really like this series that it is very addictive, which I would not be surprised if that's the case for me, because even if something's a little trashy, but like good trashy, I will still like read it. Like, I would, if I like this enough to where I want to at least read the 2nd book, I think I may try to read the entire series. But we're gonna see how this is. If I end up DNFing this, I'm just gonna unhaul it and never think about this series again. So this is a pretty big moment for me with this one because of the fact that, again, this is part of my Self-Destruct TBR. If you didn't watch that video, I had a list of books that were books I've been holding on to for some time that I've been kind of wishy-washy about whether or not I would like them. And so I put them on that TBR where if I did not read them by January 2024, they were just going to be unhauled entirely from my library. And this was one of those books because I just remember hearing a lot of people kind of have mixed reviews of it, mixed thoughts on it. Some people though that really liked it said that it wasn't nearly as bad as like Twilight, for instance, and so I was like, you know, maybe I need to give this a chance. And so when I was able to go onto my TBR for April, I thought this would be great to read during the week of Battle of the Bookish, but this is also counting for a prompt for Aurelium, which is really nice. So even if I don't finish it this week, as long as I finish it in the month for Aurelium, I'll be happy. I need a bit of a break from some of the books I've been reading. I think I want something a little bit more mindless, if you will, because more than likely the next couple of books I'm gonna need to read, I'm gonna really need to focus on. So I kind of want something that's a little bit more fun, basically mindless again. And so we'll see with this one. But like I said, I'm only like 3 chapters into it, maybe almost completely. Like, I'm not very far at all. Like, it's probably less than 25 pages because these chapters are not super long. So my plan though is I gotta do some stuff updating for Battle of the Bookish right now, and then I'm gonna go pop on the audiobook that I have through Scribd and continue working on this for the rest of the night and see how far it gets. Right now I'm gonna go, and I will speak to all you guys when I've made some progress. Hey guys, so it is actually Monday now, and I have not really had a chance to end off this vlog for Battle of the Bookish, but what I can say is I did end up finishing Crave by Tracy Wolff. I finished it last night and then got through the first little bit of Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin. I didn't really finish this though, so the last book I was able to count for reading was Crave, and I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually really enjoyed it. This was also my Self-Destruct TBR, and this was for the prompt of The Search Begins, which was just to read a book. So I managed to get 200 points off of this one because it was over 500 pages and also was for one of my prompts. So that was awesome. And today everyone is picking out who they think are the villains or what may have happened to Woody's hat, basically, for the scavenger hunt kind of idea. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be, I would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.